I've done over 200 pit stops and collected all the data to come up with this ultimate pit stop guide for GT3's in Le Mans Ultimate. This guide should cover everything you want to know about pit stops and is meant for every skill level. I think even people who've played for hundreds of hours will still learn some interesting things from this video. I've busted the most common myths, tried all the different pit stop combinations to come up with the best advice, and I've even made a comprehensive time guide in Excel, which you can find down in my Discord. You can skip in this video to the part you are interested in. I've written down all the different chapters down in the description. Let's start all the way at the beginning. Bind your pit limiter. Not only is this handy for the pit lane, but also for race starts, as both the pit limiter and race start speeds are 60 km an hour. With the pit limiter, you can brake at the brake marker for the pit entry. Immediately enable pit limiter, so you can't go over pit limit speed. Bind this key to an easy to reach position. It's also very important to remember where your box is, so you don't get surprised late in the race trying to find your box. The Pitstop MFD is very simple and not that hard to understand. Virtual energy. This is the amount of virtual energy you have in the LMU GT3 class. Virtual energy acts as a digital fuel tank to ensure all cars, regardless of engine size or fuel efficiency, have equal stint length. Fuel ratio. This is the amount of fuel compared to virtual energy. If set up correctly, the virtual energy and real fuel should run out at the same time. It is better to have a little bit more fuel compared to virtual energy, because virtual energy should be the leading factor for pit stops. Tires. Here you can change tires. You can choose used tire sets or new ones. With the used tires, it takes the tire with the highest percentage of that corner, so you cannot mix and match tires from different sides or front and rear. With this option, you can change the tires for all four wheels at the same time. If you want to set them individually, you can do that below the main tires option. First letters front or rear, second letters left or right, so FR is front right for example. Wing. With wing you can adjust the amount of rear downforce the car has. Grille. Grille is what water radiator tape is in setup. It changes how much the water radiator is covered. Tire pressure. With these options you can adjust the tire pressure per tire for when changing tires. Replace brakes. With this option you can replace the brakes during a pit stop. At the moment of making this video, this is not something you need to do, even in 24-hour races. Don't go over track limits for the pit entry anywhere at all. This will give you massive track limits, which sometimes takes 5 to 10 seconds to serve depending on the track. In the worst case you can even get the drive-thru this way, so respect the pit entry lines and also the other track limits. Trust me, it's not worth it getting these penalties. I would always suggest practicing the pit entry. Believe me, the last thing you want to do is overshoot the pit entry line and getting a drive-thru or worse, a stop and go. That will just ruin your race. Don't ask me how I know. I always include the pit entries in my track guides, so make sure to check those out. You will get a drive-thru if you enter between 60 and 70 km an hour and a stop-go above 70 km an hour. I always have the philosophy better safe than sorry for pit entries, especially in the rain, where pit entry can be very different.
Max and his team were leading with just 6.5 hours left, but then disaster struck. First, pit stop penalties for unsafe entry slowed them down.
Oh no. Oh, Max! Not again.
No! You're not gonna win or lose that race by saving 1/10 in pit entry. The timing responder for the pit speed is located at the front of the car, and that is where the speed of the car is measured. It is always measured precisely at the 60 km an hour mark. Sometimes it seemed that I could go a little bit over the speed limit after the line, but I would not suggest trying this at home. So you are driving in the pits, but don't take your eyes off the screen. You need to watch out for cars that are done with their pit stop and check where your own box is. The red box, where your car needs to stop, has big red arrows floating on top of it. The red box can be straight or 45 degrees sideways. This depends if there's a car in the pit box before yours. Contrary to popular belief, the position you come into a stop within this red box does not matter at all. In ACC for example, it made a huge difference. But in this sim, it does not matter if you're sideways in the box or if you go over the red box. Pit stop time will not be affected. A 45-degree rotated pit stop box does not add extra pit stop time. You also do not have to be accurate when parking the car. All you need to do is be in the general area of the red box, so that the game accepts the pit stop. Does request a pit stop matter? People kept telling me that I need to bind the pit stop request button and that otherwise my pit stop would be Ferrari style. But this simply is not true. I could not replicate any difference in pit stop time between requesting a pit stop or not. Fun fact, you can drive through the safety car. So now you sit in your pit box, but how long does every part of the pit stop take? Fuel time is only calculated by virtual energy, the blue bar. How much real fuel you take does not matter at all. 1% of virtual energy is 0.4 seconds of fuel time. But that seems to be random how long it takes if you add below 90% of fuel. It can differ around a second for the same amount of fuel. The more you fuel, the less this random difference seems to be. And above 90% of added fuel, there's no difference at all anymore. So every time you fuel plus 20% for example, it will be the same time every time. The same is for 100% of fuel. I have no idea why this randomness is implemented for low amounts of fuel. So how do the tires work? A full set of tires is worth 12 seconds. But something that is kinda meta and used by many pros is taking only half tires. So 2 at the front or 2 at the left for example. This takes only 5 seconds. This is a 7-second difference compared to a full set. Not only does this give you half-warm tires coming out of the pits, so the outlap is faster, but it also saves on tire sets, which can be very useful in a long endurance with limited tire sets. It also drives not as bad as you would think. Go try it for yourself. It does not matter where you take these 2 tires. Left front and right rear for example still takes 5 seconds. If you only take 1 tire it still takes 5 seconds, and if you take 3 tires it still takes 12 seconds. I think the timing is like this because like in real life, only 2 mechanics are doing the tires at once. So it does not matter if you take 1 or 2 or if you take 3 or 4 tires. You can check how many new tires you have left in the Pitstop MFD or Tires MFD. I would always suggest checking how many tires are available for a race beforehand, so you can adapt your strategy. You can do this in the main menu or you can do this in the in-game setup screen. Damage is a really weird one in LMU and should definitely get an overhaul. I've tested 50 different damage combos and there was not a clear result for how much time each damage costs. Let's start with the easy stuff. Rim damage is indicated by a flashing orange wheel, and to fix it is the same amount of pit stop time as a normal tire change. It is mandatory to fix the puncture. It automatically selects a new tire, and even if you deselect it, it will still change the tire. You can also lose a wheel completely, indicated by the flashing red tire. Most of the time you can drive back to the pits and it is around 180 seconds worth of damage. Watch out with this type of damage as the brakes really don't work at all. Bodywork damage only goes up to yellow in the HUD for GT3s. Doesn't matter how hard you crash, yellow is the max. I have no idea why it doesn't go to orange or red. This should be changed in my opinion, because there's a significant difference in the different bodywork damages, but the HUD doesn't show this. This should be changed in my opinion. Bodywork is most of the time between 30 to 35 seconds. Doesn't matter if it's only front or all around the car. It always seemed about that range randomly. If the rear wing got destroyed, it's around 30 seconds extra. So both normal body damage and rear wing is 60 seconds together. I would always suggest fixing the rear wing damage, as the car is absolutely undrivable without it. But now comes the hard part, suspension damage. There was no clear answer at all how long the damage took to get fixed, but I did come up with a few conclusions. You can only fix suspension damage together with the body damage, so there's no way of only fixing the suspension damage. All damage fixed, with only yellow suspension damage in LMU HUD, was also around 30 to 35 seconds. So it seems to be almost the same as bodywork damage. Most of the time it also didn't matter if it was 1 or 2 or 4 yellow suspension damage. It was most of the time between 30 to 40 seconds. Sometimes 4 yellow suspension damage was less pit stop time than 1 yellow suspension. You can't really see from the LMU HUD how bad the yellow damage is. There are also 2 higher degrees of damage for suspension, orange and red. Orange is mostly around 110 seconds and red is mostly around 180 seconds. And here's where it gets complicated. There were some damages that were total outliers. I had one instance where it showed only one yellow suspension in the LMU HUD, but two purple in the tiny pedal HUD. Purple means bad damage and it was 102 seconds worth of damage. But it was not only that. We also had 2 yellow suspension damage that amounted to 56 seconds of damage and 3 yellow suspensions that amounted to 55 seconds of damage. And I had one last instance where 4 yellows amounted to 60 seconds of damage. There was no logical conclusion in why these were such outliers. Repairs for yellow were mostly between 30 to 40 seconds, orange around 110 seconds, and red were mostly around 180 seconds. If you're going to fix damage on the car and you only have yellow suspension damage, I would suggest just fixing all the damage, as there's almost no time difference in fixing only bodywork damage or all damage. If you only have bodywork damage, it's almost never worth it to fix it, as it doesn't impact the lap times that much. But it can be worth it if you're doing a long endurance race and you took a heavy beating to the bodywork. You can also damage the engine, indicated by a red icon. Most of the time you cannot drive the car anymore, but sometimes the engine is still on and you can come back to the pits. You cannot repair the engine, but there also doesn't seem to be a performance impact, so this doesn't seem to work as intended at the time of making this video. You've got all that? Well, now we can talk about the wing. You can adjust the rear wing. This takes 25 seconds. If you change tires simultaneously with the rear wing, the mechanics do not do those things at the same time. So it's 12 seconds from the tires plus 25 seconds from the rear wing. But if you change the fuel and wing simultaneously, the mechanics do it at the same time. So if you take full fuel, you can change the wing freely. As you can see from this fuel chart, from around 60% of virtual energy, it takes 25 seconds. So from that point, the wing change doesn't cost extra time. You can adjust the grille during the race. This is essentially the radiator cover from the setup menu. I have no idea why it has a different name. Justin Stubenrauch told me that you should always just keep them at open, but theoretically it should give slightly more top speed. So at the time of making this video, I would not bother with this setting. Same as with the rear wing, you can't do the grille simultaneously with the tires, but you can do it simultaneously with the virtual energy. So from 10 seconds of added virtual energy, it does not cost extra time. This is around 25% of virtual energy. You can change the tire pressures only for your next set of tires. This does not take extra time during the pit stop. I would suggest not touching these and keeping these at the lowest. At the moment of making this video, brakes can be replaced, but this is not needed to be used in any of the events yet. This is something they will be using maybe in the future. Replacing brakes costs 120 seconds and is not done simultaneously with other pit stop actions, so it's always plus 120 seconds added. What is the longest pit stop for a GT3 in LMU? The longest pit stop I was able to achieve in a GT3 car was with maximum damage time of 180 seconds, plus replacing the brakes worth 120 seconds, plus tires worth 12 seconds, plus virtual energy worth 40 seconds. And like you can see, the car didn't really want to go into the pits anymore. This amounted to a total of 352 seconds or 5 minutes and 52 seconds. Sometimes the car gets rotated just before release when there's a car in the box in front of you. This does not add extra pit stop time. In some cars, like for example the Aston, it can be beneficial to bind the no traction control button. This turns the traction control off when held and can help accelerate the car faster to 60 km an hour. The Aston, for example, bogs down very badly if you are not doing this. Watch out during a busy pit stop phase, as other cars can be released in front of you. Pit exit is, in contrary to the pit entry, pretty inconsistent. If you want to be safe, I would suggest only accelerating after the front of the car has passed the 60 km an hour board. Look how big the difference is between Bahrain pit exit and Silverstone pit exit. Bahrain I can accelerate a couple of meters before the RFID sign, and at Silverstone you need to wait almost till the 60 km an hour speed sign. During a race, I would not take any big risks. It's not worth it for the tenth of a second, or you really need to practice the limit beforehand. Did you guys get all that? I want to thank you all so much for the support lately, and I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a thing or two. Let me know down in the comments what you guys want to have covered for next video. And don't forget to subscribe for more.